Story 1. Climbing into an unventilated manhole can kill you in seconds, and you wouldn't even know anything was seriously wrong. You think that's air you're breathing now? Manholes can fill with gases that are heavier than breathable air. You think you are breathing normally, but instead, you fall unconscious and suffocate from a lack of oxygen. Story 2. As a librarian, you would be horrified how many books we get returned and have to throw out because they are absolutely covered in bed bugs. We put a block on accounts and notify patrons, but I am specifically told not to mention this problem to the public whatsoever by management. Story 3. I used to work in banking, and it was eye-opening to see how many people were victims of fraud, how little recourse there is to get the money back, and how little the police can do for you too. Story 4. I work in a shelter. Some of our guests are from middle and upper-class backgrounds. Bad choices, bad health, bad treatment, and bad luck can happen to all of us, sometimes very quickly. As far as I can tell, the only thing all homeless people have in common is trauma and loss. Story 5. I work in homelessness. There is a lot of scary stuff about this work that people are probably aware of or are intentionally ignorant of. But one of the most scary and shocking things I learned in this work was pretty early on. There are many reasons that people experiencing homelessness may be dirty or not shower frequently, but I have had it reported to me multiple times that a female client is refusing to shower or practice hygiene because being dirty or unclean or stinky prevents men from raping her when she is sleeping outside. Both very scary and very sad. Story 6. As a mechanic, I have to say that the colder and more distant a mechanic is, the more likely they are to be honest. Just the really friendly ones who are ripping you off while they're being chummy with you. Story 7. Lifeguard. I cannot explain to you how quiet and how fast drowning is. Even people with some idea tend to think, okay, so barely any noise. No, there's nothing. You might get some splashing right at the beginning if someone's just panicking, but I've seen an adult man get into trouble with absolutely no sound. Even if someone can get their mouth out of the water, they're so locked in on breathing and not dying that they won't yell. Their arms and legs are under the water, and they're struggling so hard that nothing can make it to the surface to splash. You won't hear it. Please, please, please do not take your eyes off your kids in water, even the bath, for even a second. That's all it takes. In my career, I've seen drowning, but I have been fortunate enough not to see someone drowned. I would love for it to stay that way. Story 8. Supply coordinator for a hospital here. Our supplies are ridiculously cheap. That floor you were charged $1,000 for, we paid 79 cents for it. We get diapers for about $1 per case. Story 9. A lot of people don't realize it, but graduation success rate can basically be predicted based on their third grade reading ability. Early education is important, folks. Story 10. Kids are incredibly behind where they should be in terms of education levels, and they just keep getting pushed through. As in, I have a graduating high school senior that doesn't know what 5 times 4 is and can't pronounce the word illuminate. Story 11. I am a nurse. I would say it is probably the fact that people know when they are going to die. They will straight up tell you, today is my last day, thank you for being kind. And you reassure them because their vitals are good. They are responding to treatment well, and nothing is happening that would indicate a drastic decline. Then, inevitably, you will hear a flat line on the machine and run in, and sure enough, that patient has passed away. If it had not happened so many times, I would chalk it up to a few people who just did not have the will to live anymore, but I have seen it enough to know that is not it. It is really creepy when you think about it too hard. Story 12. I used to work in child protection. The people most likely to harm your child, or you, are people you already know, most likely family members. You can bar the door against bad men lurking in dark alleys, but when you do, remember who you are locking in with you. Story 13. Short staffing in healthcare is a problem that perpetuates itself. No one to teach, train, or provide experience on the job means fewer new graduates can stick with the profession. Story 14. I stop hundreds of cars a year from running over children and adults as a crossing guard. I'm only there 2 hours a day, 5 days a week during the school year. It's insane how dangerous it is for kids to walk to school. Edit. If anyone sees this, please remember that your local crossing guard stands there 10 hours a week. They know which kids are safe and which kids will run out without looking. If we're making you wait longer, There's probably a very good reason, like a kid on a bike is coming that you can't see. Please, we aren't there to inconvenience you. Do you think your local town wants to spend like 8 to 10,000 per guard per year at each crossing? Story 15. Working in the sleep world. Many people go to bed every night with untreated or undiagnosed sleep apnea. It is not entirely uncommon to see people's oxygen levels dropping to the mid-70s every night, and this is part of their normal routine. It is incredibly dangerous, and awareness should increase further. Story 16. As a nurse, it's unsettling how many patients I've seen who come in for routine procedures and end up with life-altering complications. It's often a result of rushed care or overlooked details. People assume hospitals are infallible, but the reality is that even in the best facilities, human error can lead to devastating outcomes. Always advocate for your health and never hesitate to ask questions. Story 17. I'm a teacher, and all I can say is that you should teach your kids. Teach them from an early age. Teach them at home. Drop your phone and teach your kids. Trust me, no one else will. As for us teachers, we are too busy implementing useless strategies to pass inspections and keep the administrators happy. Story 18. I'm a mailman, and sometimes people's houses just creep me out. Sometimes you walk up to a really rundown place with their mailbox hanging sideways, and you just get a bad feeling like bad things happen here. It's also creepy how bad some people's houses smell, and I can smell that from outside. If you're a hoarder with 20 cats, I can smell all the cat urine and sweet rotting smell as soon as I go up your walkway. Also, delivering mail to sketchy businesses that are clearly fronts for something else is never really fun and can make you pretty uneasy. Story 19. I work in a state mental health care hospital. We have many patients with a violent history, even some that are incarcerated but placed in the hospital for competency evaluation or as a judgment penalty. They tell many stories to new employees in orientation. One is told to emphasize the importance of observing and protecting patients in temporary restraint. Many years ago, before they had the rule of continuous one-to-one observation on restrained patients, a man was placed in a restraint chair and left alone for several minutes in a hallway. Another patient came up and decided to pull the restrained man's eyes out. I can't imagine being in that poor man's position. We have to sit in the restraint chair and be strapped down during training so we see how it feels to be unable to move, and to emphasize the importance of fixing the straps so the patient can't harm themselves or anyone else, but also not so tight that they lose their breath or regular blood flow. When my turn came, I kept thinking about the terror that man must have felt. Unable to move, unable to escape or fight back. The only chance of help is to call for staff that you also don't trust because they just put you in this position. It's so distressing. Story 20. The laxity in healthcare facilities and the staff is under such stress here in Canada. Anyways, that a lot of corners are cut to try and save time, but it eventually always comes back to cause problems. Hygiene protocols are not respected. Patients are left in their filth because you have one nurse for 40 people with alarms going off everywhere. Sterilization processes are not being followed as they should, increasing the risk of hospital-acquired infections. The list can go on. I remember starting to work and being all happy about helping people, and in the long run, you have to adapt to the poor conditions because if you try to follow the norms, you will quickly get reprimanded for wasting time or resources by your superiors. The longer I work by helping, the more bitter I become. You are basically fighting a battle that cannot be won, no matter the effort you put in. It is sad because, at the end of the day, the patient will be the one to suffer. I am not saying all employees do their work correctly. Hell no, I see plenty of lazy people, but the system rewards those people the same as the one working hard trying to fix it. The longer I try to do good, the more cynical I am becoming in this society. Story 21. How much of our worldwide technical infrastructure is held together by duct tape and some sketchy Perl script someone who no longer works there coded 20 years ago? Story 22. I am a teacher. The education system in the United States is largely flawed. We are producing children who cannot read, do math, or follow simple instructions. This is quickly going to become society's problem. Story 23. There is not much that is terrifying in the world of mortgage lending, other than the finality of wire fraud. You are getting ready for closing, communicating with the closing agent daily. They send you their account numbers for your wire, and you send a huge wire transfer of all your savings to make the biggest purchase of your life. Then the next day, the title agent asks when you are going to send that wire. It never arrived, and they have never seen the account numbers that you used. That money is gone, no one can recover it, no one is on the hook, and it has been entirely stolen from the buyer. Story 24. When you go to trial, the truth does not matter one bit. It is only what the evidence can show. Many clients struggle with this concept. In a criminal case, if you go to trial and lose, you will most likely receive a harsher sentence than you expect. Elected judges believe they have to appear tough on crime and hope that threat will convince you to take a plea deal so they have fewer cases on their trial docket. Story 25. At the large national insurance company I work for, and I'm assuming to some extent probably every national insurance company, everyone's homeowners policies that are being renewed are at minimum increasing 40%, but it would be more accurate to expect your homeowner's insurance to increase 55% or more the next time you renew. The 40% guy was a more than 2-year-old customer and had an excellent credit score with no other history of claims. Story 26. I work with government documents and read a lot of internal emails. 2 things I found out. Many of these people can't write or spell well. Borderline unreadable sometimes. One person was complaining about an increase in vandalism. The bar for being too crazy to work for a regulatory agency is a lot higher than you think. One person explained that their psychic powers showed them that all their coworkers were involved in some pretty extreme sex crimes. Story 27. Probably how painful and long dying naturally can take. I work in memory care and have cared for so many people dying. It's not a nice conversation with a loved one and then peacefully drifting off to sleep like in the movies. Sometimes it can take days, up to 2 weeks once they transition, before they take their last breath. Sometimes they scream and writhe for days while unconscious until they pass. Morphine should be a human right. Assisted suicide should be a human right. Story 28. Statistics are often manipulated and misrepresented to fit a narrative. Few look at raw data or question the validity. Statistics and research methods should be a high school course. Story 29. Veterinary medicine has one of the highest suicide rates of all professions due to a mix of emotional and financial stress, combined with easy access to fatal drugs. Almost everyone in the industry knows at least one person who has died by suicide. Story 30. All these people working administrative jobs that depend on computers, 90% of them don't really know how to properly use them, nor do they really know how to use the basic software like Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, and Microsoft PowerPoint. Maybe not very scary, but incredibly frustrating and depressing for me, especially each time I'm called by a colleague to solve the easily fixable problem they have, and I'm not from the information technology department. 2 hours ago, it was because a colleague didn't know how to turn off the formatting marks in Microsoft Word. Story 31. I'm a bit late to the discussion, but I do electrical safety work for power systems in large factories, and those things can be quite daunting. Everyone knows about electric shock. You touch something that is live, and the electricity passes through your body. It can cause you to lock up, gripping and being unable to let go, or even cause death. Fewer people know about electric arc flash. Instead of the electricity going through you, it can travel through the air to reach another conductor. This creates an immense amount of heat that essentially causes a small explosion. Small arc flashes are scary but survivable with the right personal protective equipment, arc-rated, not just fire-resistant. Large arc flashes are only survivable in arc flash suits that resemble bomb suits. People outside of electrical work probably aren't familiar with arc flash suits, but electricians can tell you they're no joke. And they shouldn't be, because that level of heat quickly changes you from biology to physics. Story 32. No, Victorian Egyptologists did not import mummies to use them as kindling, train fuel, or fertilizer. They did, however, import them to chop them up for decor and paint. One almost blew up the Sphinx with dynamite, but the Egyptian government caught wind and intervened. Also, a lot of archaeological finds were thrown in the garbage for not being pretty, including the remains of the 6th pharaoh of Egypt, approximately 5,000 years old. Story 33. Your information technology department can see how much time you do or do not spend actually doing work. Your information technology department also often throws up stumbling blocks when human resources or management want this data to make the process inconvenient and annoying. Be nice to your information technology department. Story 34. I am a fishmonger. I see nematodes inside the fillets all the time. Customers still roll their eyes at me when I advise that they probably should not make their own sushi. But what do I know? Story 35. I used to be a teacher. Every year or every so many years, we have professional development sessions to attend where we are sold on a curriculum and how this one will help our children. It's a whole big thing. There's buy-in, there's the excitement, and a whole dog and pony show about why this curriculum is the right one for our kids because, of course, it's about the kids and they come first. Color me surprised when a teacher asks, "When are we doing a curriculum training on this particular thing?" And the district person says some nonsense about how it's not on sale anymore, so we are no longer using it, and actually we are buying this one now because if we sign up for this training and invite the speaker to come here, we get 30% off the curriculum for the next 3 years. Rinse and repeat. Education is a business. The curriculums aren't special for the kids. They're on sale.